The snap of my mobile phone, who calls it a mobile phone, closing contrast with the ambient chatter and noise audible even in the hallway outside the library. It's the first day of the summer holidays, a time that had perpetually seemed so far away, and yet it's now not only here, but also made painfully obvious by the students, or lack thereof, left in the school. Most students have returned home to spend the holidays with their relatives by now. The few that are left are mostly chatting between themselves, usually about what they intend to do in the coming weeks. It makes me feel like the odd one out for taking advantage of the school library being open for the first several days of the holidays. Ostensibly, it's for students to drop off any books they borrowed and have yet to return, and for those who will have their parents pick them up to help pass the time until they get whisked away. Thanks to the recent lengthy phone call from my parents, which had so rudely woken me from my sleeping on the beanbag at the back of the library, I'm now in the latter category. Sliding my phone back into my pocket, this time remembering to set it to silent, I go back into the quiet and wholly placid room. It's a nostalgic sight. Just as when Lily first led me to the library, the orange tint of the sunset bathes the room in its light, while Hanako sits on a beanbag silently reading the Yuko fusses, just barely visible behind the computer. Hanako especially has been noticeably more quiet than usual since yesterday's happenings, but I can't really blame her. It wasn't just me that depended on that person, after all. I quietly walk back to the beanbag near her where I sat before, being doubly careful not to make any unnecessary noise. The soft puff it gives against the bag takes my weight. Hanako's eye flicked towards me, but only for a second. I get the feeling that Hanako has been quiet, only partially out of sadness following Lily's departure. Rather, she seems more thoughtful and measured than I expected, perhaps due to her desire of working out how to deal with Lily's leaving rather than being depressed over it. It makes me a little proud of her. Hey, Hanako?
Yeah?
Still going ahead with your idea of traveling? She gives a determined nod.
I'll be starting in a day or two. Naomi's decided to come with me too.
Wow, quick start. Where are you two headed to first?
I think we're gonna start by going north, then loop down and go southward.
So, Hokkaido's going to be first? She gives another nod, more tentative than the last. The significance of that place is not lost on either of us. Do you know how you're going to handle the traveling expenses and accommodations?
Yeah, I've worked everything out. I think it should be okay. Naomi says she has her side worked out too.
You know that if you need anything you can just call, right? I gave you my number before. Any time of the day is fine. She gives a smile, which in itself feels like a small personal victory.
I know. Thanks, Hisao.
Maybe Lily was right. Although I may offer Hanako any help I can possibly give, I feel as if I know she doesn't need it. She really has grown. Hanako's plan for her holidays are sharp in contrast to my simple following of my parents' suggestion to stay with them. Holidays had always made me feel less excited than most, though, so maybe this is just a return to the status quo. Before my heart attack, I always lived so aimlessly that holidays weren't all that much different from my everyday life anyway. After school, I'd wander around a bit in the city, often hanging out with some friends, before making my way home to eat dinner with usually one of my parents, but rarely both. The work schedules didn't leave much time for them to be home, and going there straight from school would just have meant I'd end up feeling bored. I was urbanite. Urbanite? Yeah, urbanite through and through. I get it. I'm like, what is he? Urbanite? Oh, urban guy. Got it.
Yeah.
It's like, Since coming to Yamaku, though, it feels like I've fundamentally changed as a person. The phone call with my parents erased any traces of doubt I might have held on that in any case. Well, before I exercised a fairly normal level of independence for a teenager, that being not a whole, my parents were more than pleased to hear my newfound ability in taking care of myself. Laundry, cooking for myself, cleaning, all in addition to other general chores that come from living without parents around. Just the little menial things I've had to pick up, but with relative ease. When I think about it, I'd always depend on them, even if they hadn't been at home all the time. To say I never depended on anyone after moving to Yamaku dormitories would be far from the truth, though. Excuse me. The two of us look up at the awkwardly fidgeting figure in front of us. Some things never change. It's getting close to closing time, so, Oh, right. I'd forgotten that the library closes early during the holidays. Hanuka and I both get up and dust ourselves off, placing our books back on the shelf behind us. The fact that our tastes in reading material have a fair amount of overlap is useful at times. With a bow to Yuko to apologize for taking so much time, Hanako takes her leave of us.
See you tomorrow, Hisao.
Bye. And with that, she walks out of the large wooden aging doors that herald the entrance to the library. She's quite the person, isn't she? I suppose I shouldn't be surprised at a staff member sharing personal opinions like this, but after knowing Yuko for a while, it's largely expected. Her relationship is more personal rather than one with her acting as an authority figure. Yeah, I think that's just how she is. She's got a lot more confidence in herself these days, though. I don't know her that well as you do, but I think I agree. It's nice to see her talking to other people. She never used to do that before. Hey, Yuko, you know about Lily's leaving, right? She told me herself a few days ago. It must be hard leaving everyone behind like she is. She quickly looks back to me after she says this, probably remembering that I went to her for advice on the relationship between Lily and me before. Are you going to be okay? That's a difficult question. It's something I'd rather not think about for now, though given more pressing issues. Something seems kind of off about this whole deal, don't you think? Yuko appears to think for a while, absentmindedly scrunching her face up in a variety of creative ways as she does so. I don't really know her well enough to make that kind of judgment. I'm sorry I can't be more help. It's fine. I just sort of thinking out loud. I gave a deep sigh and scratched my head in frustration. There's just so much stuff happening at once that I have no control over. It feels like I'm being swamped. I think everyone goes through times like that. What's important is to concentrate on what you can do, rather than what you can't do. At least that's how I see it. If I don't think like that, I don't think I'd be able to manage my life as it is. She says it with a smile and a light tone, but her words are far from any kind of joke. Being pulled between two jobs as she is, just to hopefully make enough money not only to live, but also for university, must be exhausting. Perhaps that's why, coming from her, this feels like it's more meaning than it would have if it had come from most others. I guess you've got a point there. Thank you for your advice once again, Yuko. She bows deeply and smiles again, before making her way back to the counter where she spends so much of her time. So I don't know why the story's still going if Lily is actually gone. Unless there's a time skip. You know, I finally graduated teaching and I walk through those pompous gates and then she meets Lily and she's a teacher there. That's it. I'm still holding out.
Yeah, or maybe she comes back like something good has got to happen.
Her parents die, she inherits everything, she comes back.
And then she's like, I'ma be your sugar mama.
And like pay for your university and my university and then we'll teach in the same school together.
Boom.
The tiny wings of the cupboard crane in my fingers are only just visible in the dim light of my room. Just a little of the moonlight being able to peek through the curtains and around their edges. I lie still in the dark bed for a long moment. Idly looking up at the little origami bird. It feels like a lot's happened since Lily folded this, but at the same time it feels like very little has changed. Compared to everyone else, I'm back to square one. I might have a newfound idea of where I want to go in life, but it's hardly something that affects me now. Hanako changed, I know that much. If anything, she just makes me feel like I've got no excuse to be like this, considering her previous situation. Lily, though. I turned the bird in my fingers another way, looking at it from yet another angle. When I first met her, she seemed aloof and perhaps somewhat distant, Her actions were always careful, measured, and precise, and her carefully maintained composure always gave the appearance of her unerring confidence and serenity. In time, she became less formal, just a bit, but enough. It felt good to see her lower her inhibitions around me and opening up, even just a little, of her own accord. It felt as if I was seeing her real self slowly becoming more vibrant and visible. Now, though, I'm beginning to have doubts. Perhaps they're to be expected after what is, effectively, the two of us breaking up. They don't feel new or strange, though, but rather like an old book being found and dusted off. I soon realized after meeting Lily that she saw me as she did Hanako, as someone who needed help and care. At first, I simply thought that we'd be fine as friends, helping each other through our limited time together in school. But then I began to treasure our moments together more and more, from our quiet walks to our talking over lunch. The good sides of her personality became ever more obvious and ever more likable. The absence caused by Lily's trip to Scotland to visit her long-distance family and sick aunt only made me realize how much I liked just being around her, and I had thought that she felt a similar way. For her, though, maybe that wasn't everything in our relationship. Even after she returned to Japan, that just meant she lost her family once again after meeting them for such a brief time. She lived so much of her life without her family around, not to mention with Akira working long hours, that she had little choice but to be like that. I had thought her sense of independence to be a good and admirable trait. It was in stark difference to my reliance on my parents before my heart attack, as reluctant as I may have been to admit it. However, it also meant that she never let people get too close to her. She lost her family likely due to her blindness, went to a different school from anybody she knew because of it, and worked all the harder to make sure she didn't end up a burden on her sister and those around her. And now, Akira's going to Inverness, just like the family she thought she'd lost. She never told me of her plans, as conflicted as she was about them. Lily didn't want to be a burden on anyone, including me. I'm an idiot. I never questioned it. I never tried to be there to ask when she needed me to. I just set up my life and expected it to stay that way forever, with the two of us having a nice long relationship where we pushed forward towards our futures together. A small pit of frustration and anger at myself wells up inside my chest. I just let everything happen, never even trying to help Lily. Just her being there was enough. I thought I could keep going on if that were true. But that would never have been enough. It was a childlike dependence on somebody, without any attempt to understand or help their situation. Thanks to that, I lost Lily. I lost the one person I loved most because I wasn't there for her when she needed me. With an increasingly angry feeling washing over me, I turned over and set the crane back on the desk next to my clock, the place where it has lived since that day when she folded it for me, since that day when she herself said that my burdens needed to be my own. The obnoxious bright red numerals of my alarm clock shine through the darkness of the room onto my tired eyes. 10 o'clock, evening. Curfew will be soon. I wonder. Akira mentioned they'd be leaving this evening. I have no idea exactly when their flight is, but that means there's a chance, however small, that they might not have left already. Adrenaline starts to move through my body as I sit up on my bed, my eyes suddenly wide with the possibility. There's no guarantee they haven't left. Indeed, it's likely they have already, but there's also a chance they haven't, however small it may be. Just this once, just as I should have before. I stand up, rush over to my cabinet, throwing out some clothes as fast as I can and sliding them on in quick succession. Each second that goes by is a second I can't regain, a second that may mean the difference between catching them and losing them forever. Even if I fail, I have to try. I can't let her leave everything behind without even trying to stop her, without just this once being there for her. With the last of my clothes slipped on, I hastily grabbed the phone off my desk. Luckily, the number of the local taxi company is still in my call history. A gruff, unenthusiastic voice announces the name of the company while I pace around the room. It takes some effort to slow down my voice and keep it clear over the phone. The chilly night air sweeps against me as I open the dormitory door, but nevertheless, I keep up my brisk speed as I half jog, half run out the school gates. It may not be curfew just yet, but it is precariously close. If there were a guard around, there'd no doubt have some questions for me, but it looks like I've managed to come out just before they arrive, or they're around a corner. My pace picks up as I make my way through the school garden, their nighttime allure all but lost when I begin to run to the school gate. The lamps of the courtyard, dim as they are, provide just enough illumination to light the way and prevent me from tripping over. The buildings themselves take on a rustic, almost antique-looking edge when I glance at them. Looking back, it seems strange that they once appeared so dark and looming to me. Now they just look to be somewhat anachronistic school buildings, the same as any other bar their age. Leaving the gates behind, I pull up and stop just before the taxi, parked just as Akira's car had been. Its gaudy and brightly lit sign looks out of place on the quiet country backdrop. I impatiently squeeze myself through the door, giving the driver the address of where the two should hopefully be staying. By the time the taxi pulls up after its trip, it's maddeningly casual speed. It's well and truly deep into the night. The house is truly enormous, its sheer size much larger than I expected, and ominously sit. Fearing the worst, I ask the driver to stay just in case my efforts are for naught. A single press on the fancy intercom system outside the gate produces a short electronic melody in the otherwise silent road. It's not long before a somewhat deep, gruff voice can be heard from it.
Deep
Akira.
and gruff.
It's Akira. It's Akira.
Why would she be answering their intercom? This is the Hakamechi residence. Please state your name and why you're bothering us this late.
I press on despite inwardly wincing at the
His voice!
I press on despite inwardly wincing at the unreasonable annoyance audible in his voice. It's Hisao Nakai. I was hoping to meet Lily Akira if they're still here. Surprisingly, I managed to summon quite some energy to my voice, enough to make the other side of the intercom silent. A few seconds pass, but just before I press the button again and ask what's going on, a light turns on outside the front door. I strain my eyes and try to make out who's coming through, but as he comes past a large parked car with fishing rods sticking out the back, his identity becomes clear. His face is typically placid and emotionless as he saunters up to the gate. He's still childlike in his mannerisms despite his demeanor. With the press of a few buttons from behind the fence, the gate slowly opens. Told you.
Robot.
Hisao? What are you doing here? I think this is the most emotion. Oh, it's the most emotion. Damn! I've ever seen
robot got emotion.
from his voice. Not that it would be hard to reach that mark. Akira told me that she and Lily would be staying here before they left for their flight. I need to talk to Lily just one last time. Are they still here? The look on his face says everything. I failed. I was too late. The one time I actually needed to act quickly and... Actually, I calculate it's possible. What is it? He's a bit taken aback at my fervor, but I can't help it at this point. They left not long ago. Only minutes and 23 seconds to be exact before you arrived. In fact, if you were to head straight to the airport using Highway 10, exit 27, you might be able to. Hisao? I dart back towards the waiting taxi, grabbing the little money is left in my pocket as I go. Thanks, Hideaki. With that, I take a seat and in short order bark out my destination. My chest beats wildly as I tear down the street, my body twisting this way and that, and slip between the pedestrians walking back and forth beside me. With the road solemnly blocked by taxis and other cars dropping off passengers and picking up others in the same time they have to wait, we ended up having to stop almost a block away. But that's in the past now. What matters is reaching Lily. One foot hits the ground, the other quickly following without the slightest thought, as if my legs have taken on a life of their own, and all my mind can do is concentrate on the view ahead of me. Just one glimpse of that long hair of hers, that long yellow hair that was the same color as the wheat that stretched as far as the eye could see. In the end, I depended on Lily, just as Hanako did. Even after we started going out, it still doesn't feel like she really ever let herself depend on me. Except for one moment. That one moment where we held each other tightly in that bright yellow field. At that time, she must have feared losing me just as she did everyone else. That's why, just this once, the night air wraps around me, draining every last remnant of warmth out of my body to the extent that it feels like midwinter. than a summer night. My fingers, my hands, my feet, they all feel increasingly cold. The sound of the passing crowd is reduced to no more than background hum, while the sound of my shoes hitting the pavement echoes loudly, every step surging towards the person I have to catch. Forced by my chest tightening in response to the cold of the night, I rest an arm over to try to settle it down. When the airport comes into view, though, I realize this feeling is one I've felt before. Not now. Of all the times for this, please, not now. I take a gulp and soldier on regardless, pushing my body as far as it will go. Sweat pours me as I hurtle forward, my shoulders hitting someone's side, and my mind suddenly flooding with emotion and memories. I continue on without an apology. I have to keep moving now. If I stop, I'm not sure I could begin again, and even if I could, it would all be for naught if I'm not in time. I hit another person, then another, offering little resistance to getting bounced about. My feet feel numb, my arms are losing all feeling. My chest forces me to hunch over awkwardly, tightening ever more. That afternoon in the snow, that time when my life irreversibly changed, images of Iwanako and that damn letter flash over and over in my mind. The first love I'd lost thanks to my condition. I can't let that happen again. I don't care what happens to me anymore. I just need to see her one last time. There! A sliver of yellow and white comes into view some distance down the road, her figure silhouetted by the lights emanating from the airport entrance. Lily! Lily! Lily, stop! Please! Lily! Come on, Lily. I know your hearing's far beyond Gah! My view suddenly spins out of control and ends up on the ground, my body haphazardly sprawled after hitting someone and stumbling over. Before I can assess the damage, an unbelievable pain ignites my body. All my thoughts are blanked as I curled up and frantically clutch my chest.
Hey, are you okay? That was a really bad fall.
This pain, I can't. Any sharp knock could do me in, any overexertion. I thought I could overcome my limits this once.
Something's wrong with him!
What's the matter? Are you? The voices of those gathered around me are gradually replaced by louder ringing in my ears. By now I'm unable to move my head. My eyes turn upwards to see the mute moving of the lips. Even as I clutch my chest, I realize I can't feel my fingers anymore, nor my feet. It feels like my entire body is shutting down from my extremities. With one last effort, I turn my head down the road towards the airport entrance that's casting its light over me. Lily's there, behind the crowd. Her head is tilted, but only just slightly. I can feel my vision dimming as I try to yell out, but nothing emerges from my mouth, despite my best efforts. Slowly but surely, my vision begins to black out the scene before me. So, this is how it ends. I failed. I was so close, so very close, but at the very last moment, my condition seized my chance at a new life and dragged me back. Now I'm going to die, sprawled out just meters from an airport, with a crowd of babbling people surrounding me, and with Lily leaving for Scotland, just a little distance ahead. Lee. The last word extinguishes the last of my energy. The words fall into deep, inescapable darkness as every muscle in my body shuts down. I'm sorry, Lily. I was too late.
Oh my god.
If that was how it ended, I would literally just break down and be like, fuck everything.
That would have been the worst thing ever. To be honest, I was waiting for the credits.
What's going on? As I slowly open my eyes, a bright white light assessed my retinas. For minutes I just lay there, where I am, mindlessly staring ahead while my scattered thoughts coalesce in my slowly waking mind. Slowly but surely, the white begins to come into focus as a bare expanse begins to be drawn across my field of vision. It's only when the light fixture comes into view that my mind clicks that this is the ceiling above me. Slowly levering myself up, I silently absorb through all my senses and details of this room I'm in. The smell and taste of the strong bleach hanging in the air, lending the impression of a place just slightly too clean to be natural. Inoffensive pale peach-colored walls, all perfectly painted without a crack, stain, or imperfection. A single frame painting hangs on the wall, perfectly straightened. Like the walls, it's as boring and inoffensive as can be. My attention grabbed by the translucent curtain waving across my vision, my eyes falling into the open window it covers. When I move my right arm to lift myself up and look through it, I feel it's only now, too, that I notice a cannula tubes winding around my cheeks and into my nose. Oh shit, like he's in there.
Yeah.
Like, oh fuck. After some fidgeting, I settle for just looking around the corner of the window. Beyond the thick leaves of several large trees, I can see the greenery below, backing out into a field, a customary island of green in the outskirts of the city. Judging by the sun outside, it's noon, of which day, though, I'm not sure. So, I'm in a hospital again. I let out a long, tired breath as I tried to collect my scattered thoughts, my mind seemingly cast in a dozen directions, all at once, with as many emotions running through me. After slowly laying back down, I decide to start at the beginning. Why am I here? I cast my mind back, but I can't work out a smooth recollection of what happened. The events of last night, or whichever night it was, come back more as a series of snapshots than any cohesive memory. Lying on my bed, looking at an origami bird, talking to Hideaki outside the Hakamichi residence, running down the street, passing pedestrians and bumping into more and more of them, falling, looking up at a serially bright airport entrance, seeing Lily's back as I lay on the ground. The silence of the private room suddenly feels overwhelming. So that's it. I had my chance to correct my mistake, and I blew it. Whether I was at fault for neglecting my medication, or disregarding it to pace myself, or my body was for giving out so soon, it doesn't matter now. All that matters is that once again, I'm alone. The pastel blue pillows yields with little resistance as I let myself fall back into the bed. Its starchy case, along with the starchy sheets, provide little comfort. Compared to the darkness of the last night's events, the bright light of the room around me is striking. All it does, though, is emphasize how otherworldly places like this are. Arrhythmia. A strange word, a foreign, alien one. One that you don't want to be in the same room with. A rare condition. It causes the heart to act erratically and occasionally beat way too fast. It can be fatal.
It was a miracle that you were able to go on for so long without anything happening,
they said. And then it did. My condition had taken away everything. My old school was of no importance anymore. My home was reduced to a faraway place. Both my friends and my first love simply stopped visiting after a length of time. I became cynical and embittered, distant and subdued. In my defense, no person could avoid that after such a thing happening to them. But nonetheless, I left the hospital as a very definitely changed person. Things changed. I made new friends with Hanako, Shizune, Misha. I found a new sense of home in my dormitory, a new interest in science and the world around me, and I found a direction to my life that I had never felt before. I'd also discovered other things. The sense of isolation, Yamaku and its surroundings, was not entirely unwelcome. The quiet, giving a peace of mind I might not have found elsewhere, but it gave the area a feeling of being pushed out of the way, of being kept out of sight. People on the streets would sometimes glance awkwardly, or quickly turn their heads as they realized they were staring. Even if my condition wasn't visible, my uniform was. Even if it weren't, I was still different. I took 17 pills a day, morning, midday, and night. My scar, though hidden behind clothing, was still a permanent mark of my condition, and most of all, there was a very real possibility of death. A bad fall, an absent-minded hard hit on the back, a simple sprint taken too far. Anything could have set my heart off, and several times I teetered on the edge of the abyss even with all the care I took of myself. But that was fine. I could have lived with all that. Because there was one thing I found, or rather refound after entering Yamaku, which was once again snatched away before my eyes. It's only now that I realize just how delicate my newfound sense of happiness was. Everything depended on her. the linchpin of my life since I first entered Yamaku as a sullen, confused, and aimless transfer student. Lily Sato was the one person I could depend upon above all others, and who reciprocated the love that I felt for her. But I failed her, and I only realized it all too late. I thought that I could just set my life up and continue the way forever, but the real world doesn't work like that. I finally realized the meaning of those words, only to be struck down as I confronted my failure to do so in time. The surroundings I'm now in are all too familiar. It's as if Yamaku was but a dream, and I'm still recovering from the first major heart attack. Maybe that's why I feel so tired. It feels almost as if I've lived the entire last few months of my life in a space of minutes. The weight of my eyelids closes my eyes, my physical and mental exhaustion letting me offer no resistance. Unintelligible mumbling around of the bed steers me out of my sleep. With my eyes still closed, I can focus and make out someone, presumably a nurse, bidding farewell to a doctor. As I open my eyes, I notice the door closing in my peripheral vision. The doctor stands reading some notes off a clipboard, held in his hand, carefully looking over the pages. After consulting his obviously very important document, he looks up and notices my gaze. It's now that I notice something slightly odd about his expression and general disposition. Oh, I can't quite put my finger on it.
Ah, I see you're awake, Mr. Nakai.
His quick glance to my bed, and, to verify my name, shows that his documents obviously didn't have it written on them.
I must admit, this is a bit unfortunate. Your parents visited just earlier while you were asleep. I can notify them you are awake now, if you would like.
Thanks, that would be good. I gave a somewhat dazed reply, but likely the one he'd expect, before really thinking about what I'm saying.
Not a problem. If you have any questions you would like to ask, I'll be happy to answer them. That is, unless you would prefer to rest. The anesthetic is still going to be affecting you for a bit, I'm afraid.
The anesthetic, of course. That'd be why I felt so strange the first time I woke up. I slowly shake my head, not wanting to dislodge any pipes or cause myself any more discomfort than necessary. The doctor politely puts down his clipboard in response. I guess my main question is, what exactly happened?
To put it simply, you've unfortunately had another heart attack. While not as severe as your first, you were very lucky it occurred so close to a hospital. After being stabilized, you were taken to the operating room. What followed was keyhole surgery in order to insert a temporary pacemaker. All in all, the incident happened 2 days ago, with emergency treatment being carried out very soon afterward. Since then, we've kept you under close observation while you were asleep.
Will I be alright? Are there any lasting problems?
Compared to the procedure carried out on your first heart attack, this was relatively minor. While you have to undergo surgery once more in a few days, time to remove the pacemaker, assuming there are no complications, there should be no lasting implications.
He continues talking, the subject shifting into a repetition of facts about arrhythmia and my medication, and I already know for the most part. I start to nod and feign interest while my mind drifts. I begin to think about how perfectly hung the inoffensive painting hanging on the wall behind his shoulder is, and how neat the sterile and surroundings are, even including the doctor himself.
If my mumbling bores you, you are quite welcome to say so, Mr. Nakai. Lord knows I lose track of myself sometimes. Ha ha ha.
A sort of chuckle at his self-depreciating joke as I grimace awkwardly, having been rather badly caught out. The doctor's chuckling sounds different from that of the nurse at Yamaku, though, come to think of it. As I ponder why, I realize why the man in front of me feels just a little bit off. His smile is neat and sterile. He delivers his little joke perfectly, with the customary inoffensive chuckle. It is like, rather than talking to the man whose name is neatly printed on the name tag pinned to his lab coat, I'm merely interacting with an actor reading off a pre-rehearsed script, every action having been choreographed beforehand. I suppose he has to be this way, though, being a doctor. He has to keep his neat and sterile smile while chatting to the girl with cancer slowly spreading through her body, when reassuring the woman who will surely die from childbirth and every other terminally and critically ill patient. It's a little bit of distance, that little bit of aloofness. It makes me wonder if I've been too harsh, especially consider its disposition far from being adopted only by people in his profession. After all, the one I love kept the same distance from others herself. Looking up to the doctor again, I realize I've been in thought with my head bowed for some time.
I understand you must be tired. You've been through a lot. As I mentioned before, the anesthetic should still be affecting you. If you do not mind, I'll let you get some rest, and I'll tell your parents you have woken up for you.
I think that would be good. Thank you. He gives a curt nod before picking up his clipboard and making his way to the large white door in the corner of the room, closing it behind him with a thud. In the end, I'm alone again. Lily's gone, Akira's gone, Hanako would be traveling, and even my parents have already left the hospital. 4 pale peach walls, 1 white ceiling, and a single open window to look out towards the world outside. It's hard to think of a future when the past is crowded around you, claustrophobic in its neat, sterile, starchy, bleach-smelled grip. Lost for what to do or focus on, I content myself with sleeping the time away, as if this was just another dream like Yamako had been. White. A sterile, clean, white room. Oh. My eyes open, and I simply stare at the ceiling for some time. It's about as interesting as a television would be, mounted on its metal rack hanging off the ceiling ahead of the bed. Indeed, the television saw its entire use during the time my parents were here, left on quietly as they waited for me to wake up. It was about as banal? Yeah, as it had been their first time I'd ended up in the hospital. Earlier today, an attending nurse had offered to turn off the EKG speaker. I refused simply because its sound was too entirely normal for me now. It's almost comforting in a way. The metronome-like regularity gives it at least some feeling that time is moving, even in a place such as this. After some time of listening to its beeping while I fully awaken, though, I realize there's another sound in the room. Concentrating all my efforts to listen, a task made rather easy by the lack of distraction, a tiny, tiny melody can be heard. Light and quiet, the music sound almost fragile as it is dwarfed by the EKG's pulses.
Oh my god! What did we give Lily before she left for Scotland?
The music box.
Tilting my head just slightly to the side in an effort to see the source of the melody without dislodging any of the sensors and pipes stuck into me, I notice a little wooden box sitting in the nightstand next to the bed. My mouth opens just slightly while I silently watch the tiny yellow metal drum slowly rotate inside, the little bumps on its surface gradually moving in and out of sight. The music box. It's the one I gave. The creaking of the door breaks me out of my reverie, my head and heart remaining still as my eyes turn to see who's coming through. Long tan skirt, peach off the shoulder sweater, pale, almost porcelain skin, blue clouded eyes and long yellow hair. All I can do is stare as Lily slowly walks into the room, her fingers slightly running over the walls for orientation, and my mind comes to a shuddering halt. Lily? She stops mid-stride, her entire body tensing.
Hisao, was that you?
Her voice is quiet and pensive, echoing her expression. I thought you were... Lily takes one tentative step forward, then another, as if she were holding herself back. Her control over her composure is all for naught, though, as she finally rushes to where I lay, as the last of her resistance falls. I'm slightly taken aback when she grabs hold of me, hunching over as tears begin to fall from her cheeks, since only minutes ago I thought she was on the other side of the world. After a moment of hesitation, I rest my right hand on her soft shoulder.
Hisao.
Lily's body trembles as her tears blot the pale green sheets, her emotions flooding through her carefully maintained exterior. With her face now closer and made easier to see for her pale skin being lit by the sunlight from the window, I notice her cheeks being reddened than they should be. It's okay, Lily, I'm okay. You don't need to... She rights herself quickly, her crying forcefully stifled with both sadness and stubbornness remaining in her moistened eyes. Her prideful nature, always having been something to contend with, takes me off guard.
Stop telling me not to worry about you, Hisao. Just this once, let me cry.
I'm caught speechless. She waits for a response, but her composure breaks again after a handful of seconds. I swallow hard to try and settle my own emotions while she weeps into my bed, a strange mixture of relief and depression welling up. Lily's here. She's really here. If I couldn't feel her skin under my hand, I'd hardly believe my own eyes. My efforts weren't for nothing. My body's attempt to take away everything that was important to me once again have been foiled. But now, I don't feel as happy as I thought I would be. Seeing her here, crying like this over me, this is the one thing wanted to avoid since coming to love her. No, ever since leaving the hospital. I'm sorry, Lily. It's my fault I'm here. I shouldn't have tried to push myself so far. I give a self-depreciating snort. After months of keeping myself together so nobody would worry over me, I went and did something like this. I guess I'm pretty dumb. With a couple of sniffs and a long breath, Lily manages to pull herself together and calm down a little bit. Despite her red cheeks, moist eyes, and lines of tears still visible, she delicately wears that weak smile she seemed to so often give.
You needn't blame yourself. I heard later that it happened as you were running down the road after me, right?
Still... She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, returning more to her old self than the rush of emotion wears off.
Why did you run after me, Hisao?
I move to respond, but notice her face tightening.
Even after I'd said goodbye and I'd left Yamaku Academy.
She takes a moment to steady herself, her emotions almost bubbling up once again. I just wanted to say I'm sorry.
Sorry?
For the times when I wasn't there when you needed me. Until now I thought you just being there would be enough. I only needed you by my side to make any day feel better. Even if my body may be like this, I want to help you, Lily. To be there when you need someone.
But you always were there, Hisao.
Why did you want to go to Scotland, Lily?
Why? I told you before, because Akira was going, and because of my family's summons to their home.
Why didn't you say that you wanted to go? I'm not stubborn often, but this one time I think I need to be. I want you to stay here, Lily. I want you to stay here where everyone you know lives, and where all your dreams and ambitions are made. If you choose to stay, I'll never leave your side. I won't let you lose another person. When I had my heart attack, I was snatched away from everyone and everything I knew. You showed me a new life after I came to Yamaku. I'd lost my past, but you showed me a future. It's true that I haven't always been there for you. I'm unreliable sometimes. I lied, and I thought I'd come to understand you when I hadn't even understood myself. But that as it may, I want to give you a future as well. I want to be there for you, to share both our burdens and your happiness, just like I promised back in Hokkaido. I want you to trust me. I know I had problems coming to put my trust in you after losing so many people I'd known after my heart attack, but that's how I know that being unable to trust others can feel awful. That's why I can't just watch you throw everything away like this. I never want you to go through what I did. I would do anything to stop that.
You can be quite steadfast when you want to be, can't you?
As I said, it isn't often. My weak smile drops, though, as the ivy in my arm digs in a little. It's a harsh reminder of my tether in my condition. Lily's face tenses as I let out a small gasp of pain, immediately making me wish I'd stifled it better. All I can do is sigh in defeat. I tried not to let anyone worry over me for entire time since I left the hospital, but I can't even stop the one person I love most for crying over me. Even if I might finally be able to put my feelings into words, I feel pretty useless with a body like this. Every time I tried to reach towards something, it was just snatched away, and even now only turned out for the better due to luck. I guess that's something else I should apologize for. All I can ever do is make you worry. Even now, there's very little chance I'll live anywhere near a full life. The feeling of Lily's warm, soft hand moving over my left cheek makes me lift my head up, her smile gentle and warm as she touches me.
I think that is something very natural for you to say. You were always so sincere and self-conscious. You were also reserved and mild-mannered and patient to a fault with Hanako, yet curious about everything and everyone. When I said I missed you while I was with my family, I wasn't lying or exaggerating. The thought of you was never far from my mind and helped me through that time. That's why I was so confused about what to do when my family summoned me. Even after I thought I'd made my decision, you tried your hardest to challenge me about it. I didn't confess to you out of pity or believing you were somehow different from what you are. I confessed because I never want to lose you and want you to always be a part of my life, no matter what might change. You are a very beautiful person, Hisao. Your heart changes none of that, so please, don't apologize for yourself anymore.
For a long time, silence reigns in the room. I'm not really sure what this newly born feeling inside of me is, but it pales in insignificance as I wordlessly gaze at Lily's smiling face, warm and gentle as it has always been. It's only as her thumb crosses my cheek, wiping away a single drop of moisture, that I realize this is all I've ever wanted. For what feels like the first time, I give an earnest, wide smile. As Lily feels it against her palm, she returns the gesture. More time passes before either of us say a word, neither of us needing speech to communicate our feelings to each other. I know I can't promise you that I'll always be around, or that we'll be together forever. With some difficulty, I slowly lift my hand, placing it on her pale shoulder. But I think I can at least take you to next year's Tanabata festival to make up for making you miss this year's. Lily's expression is one of surprise, though I can't say I blame her.
You remembered that?
I've got a pretty good memory, sometimes. She raises her head a little and takes her hand from my cheek, giving a small, amused giggle. I smile absent-mindedly at how earnest it is, almost girlish in its lightness. Still, smiling warmly, she collects herself and stands upright with a hand resting on my chest. It feels like I'm seeing her for the first time. The sun from the window glowing behind her just as it did when I first walked in that room where she was drinking tea.
Very well then, shall we make it a promise between the both of us to go to next year's Tanabata together?
Even if she can't see me doing so, I nod approvingly. I promise.
I promise.
That's it?
It's the good ending! Yay!
That... No. What?
Are you disappointed?
Yes?
Well, you really wanted the time skip and the...
No, fuck that. But how is that... What? Let's be friends and meet up next year?
Wait.
She's not staying. Well, she didn't say she was going to stay.
Oh.
They just promised I'll take you next year.
But nobody knows what'll happen. Maybe,
You understand what I'm getting at, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's totally not...
they're not gonna know. Oh, well, fuck. That's super sad.
Oh! Oh!
Oh.
Oh!
Oh.
Yes, 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 yes.
Akira, Lily, and I silently sit on the grass embankment high above the local town, the breeze gently blowing through the cloudless sky. We may be just a few minutes' walk from town, on a hill just outside its limits, but the view is entirely unexpected. Lily sits beside me, her eyes closed, as a gentle breeze flows through her hair.
This is a nice area.
Yeah, I never knew a place like this was anywhere near Yamaku.
And I had to be the one to find it, of course.
Akira's grin is genuine, but her tone is slightly different from her usual carefree nature.
It's good that you're out of the hospital though, Hisao.
Nobody's more glad than I am. I can't stand hospitals.
So you two going back to the school tomorrow?
Yep.
Yep.
Akira chuckles in amusement before looking back out to the town below, the trees between the buildings swaying in the wind. Pity we couldn't go up north for the summer holidays, or get to Tanabata.
I wouldn't worry, there's always next time. You'll be graduating before the next summer vacation, won't you?
Yeah, there'll still be college after that, mind.
Going to the same one? Likely, we both have high enough scores to meet the entry requirements. Fuck yeah!
You sound so sure.
Don't worry, you're better than I am in most subjects.
I guess we'll work it out in due time.
That's the way, just enjoy yourselves in Yamaku while you're there.
Lily gives a sad sigh at the distinction made between Akira and the two of us.
Do you really need to go back to Scotland? Yeah, the folks are already out for my blood as it is.
You weren't made to stay this long? She gives her trademark wide grin.
Setting my boyfriend up with a passport took some time. Ah! Akira gets a happy ending! Yay!
Oh my god, yes! You're taking him with you?
Just for a while at first. He's a surprisingly worldly guy, so I think he'll do just fine.
Akira gives an amused snort.
If our father had his way, I'd have gone a long time ago. I just couldn't pass up an excuse to stay with my favourite little sister a little while longer, though.
She leans right and gives Lily a tight, playful hug, cheering her up considerably.
It's nice to be with you one last time, though.
For what it's worth, I'm in the same boat.
Thanks, you two. I'll try and come back sometime, don't worry. It's a shame that the business keeps you so busy. The place won't run itself, I'm afraid, but I think it's going to be just the same over there. Considering that, I better get going.
Have fun over there, Akira.
Will do.
With a slight grunt, she lifts herself with her hands and stands up, dusting herself off as she does.
Well, I better be off. The plane won't wait for me after all.
She has a certain unusual wistfulness in the tone of her voice, her eyes firmly planted on her sister.
I'll be okay, Akira. Yeah, I know. Come now, it isn't that bad. You'll be able to see us again soon.
It is strange to have Lily reassuring a doubting Akira for once. She really has changed.
Goodbye, Akira.
Bye. For a second, the dark-clad figure looks down at both of us, smiling wildly, perhaps more wildly than I've ever seen her do before. She lets out a long, slightly wavering breath to steady herself before leaving, but eventually slips her hand in her pocket and turns on her heel. And with that, she walks away, one hand held high in the air as she goes.
See you later, you two.
A jazz tune with no beat, melody, or direction to the very end. After a few moments of sitting silently, Lily and I pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off. Turning towards her with a broad smile, I hold out my hand. Shall we be off then? She takes my hand in hers with a gentle nod and a smile as beautiful and warm as ever.
Indeed we shall, Hisao.
That's it. I'm okay. I'm good. Set off towards the school. What a wonderful smile engraves itself. That one my memory. That wonderful smile that we both share. Our past may be scattered and at times overshadowed by sadness, but they also are irrevocably part of our lives and personalities. Even if I could change a single thing, I wouldn't, because my past was what led me here. That's why, even with all that's happened to us before, and all that may well befall us, together, we'll keep walking forwards, towards the future, our future.